Assalamu alaikum. Hello, my dear students. Our topic today is the importance of sunlight to the living organisms. The sunlight is very important, especially for the plants. Why? Because the plants make photosynthesis process, and this process is very important for the plant to make its own food, To make photosynthesis process, we must have three things. Number one is the sunlight. Sunlight which absorbed by the chloroplast which existed in the plant leaves. Number two is the carbon dioxide. Which also enters the plant from the leaves. And then the water, which the roots absorb it from the soil. And with water, the salts, which is necessary also for photosynthesis process. And when the photosynthesis process occurs, the starch and oxygen is produced. And the starch is the food for the plant. So the photosynthesis process is very important. Why? Because the plant makes its own food by this photosynthesis process. So to make photosynthesis process, we must have sunlight and carbon dioxide and water and the chloroplast, which exists only on the plant cell. Then we will get starch and oxygen. And if we want to define the photosynthesis process, how can we define it? It is a biological process, occurs only on the living organism, especially on the plant. Takes place in the green bars, which contains chloroplast. It is the leaves for the plant. To make the own food. What is the own food for the plant? It is the starch. And if we want to detect the presence of the starch on the plants, we use iodine solution. It is used to detect the presence of starch on the plant leaves. Why? Because the leaf will be colored with blue color. Due to the reaction of iodine solution with the starch which is produced from the plant leaf due to the photosynthesis process. And then any organism which can make photosynthesis process, we called it a producer. Producers. The producers, they are living organisms that can make their own food by making photosynthesis process. So any organism makes photosynthesis process, it is a producer. Can you give me example for this? Yes, green plants, green algae, and some types of bacteria. Green plants, green algae, and some types of bacteria. And any organism which feed on the producer, depend on the producer, it is called consumers. They are living organisms also that depend on the producers directly or indirectly to get their food. So they depend on the producers. And we classified it into two types. They feed on producer directly as human, cow, donkey, chicken. They eat producer directly. And there is another type. They feed on consumers indirectly as human, lion, tiger, and hawk. So we have the producers, which make its own food by the photosynthesis process, as green plants, green algae, some types of bacteria. Then the consumers feed on the producers, depend on the producers directly or indirectly. And we classified it into producers which feed directly on the producer, consumer which feed directly on the producer, and consumer feed indirectly on the producers. Consumer which feed directly on the producer as human, cow, donkey, chicken. Consumer which feed indirectly on the producer as human, lion, tiger, and hawk. And we have the third type, the decomposer. They are living organisms that can't make their own food due to non-presence of chloroplast. So they feed on dead organisms, plant remains, and rotten food. They can't make photosynthesis process, and don't have the ability to feed like the consumer. So it is feed on dead organisms, plant remains, and rotten food. As some types of bacteria, some types of fungi, as bread, mold fungus, which existed on bread, and yeast fungus. So we have the producer, can make its own food by photosynthesis process. Consumer, classified into two types, feed directly on producer and feed indirectly on producer. And we have the decomposers, which can't make its own food. So it is feed on food remains, dead bodies, and rotten food, like some types of bacteria, some types of fungi as bread, and mold fungus and yeast fungus. The decomposers has a great importance. What is this importance? Number one, they help to get rid of dead bodies. If the decomposers don't exist, the whole planet will covered with dead bodies, and increasing the soil fertility, and used in a lot of industries, as yogurt industries. Thank you for watching this video, and goodbye.